Today what I'd like to do, as far as the demonstration goes, is I'd just like to show you guys a few ways to use the SoftRider clog. You know, in an acute sense, we can literally just, vet wrap or elastikon these on with some impression material. Super easy to do. I think one of the big things I think about when I'm dealing with acute laminitis, or as it phases out of acute, is just the application process and how long I have to have the horse's feet in the air. You know, the opposing limb is under a lot of stress. Normally, with laminitis, one limb will go slightly before the other, but we've got to be mindful that the longer we have that horse's foot in the air, we're compromising the other side. So, and that's what advances me through to, modern materials a lot more and the processes of getting them on. So the other thing we're going to do is what I use a lot is I'll cast on the SoftRider clogs with some impression material, so I'm going to demonstrate that as well. And then we've kind of got a hybrid approach. This would be in a more kind of chronic phase when we're out of the acute phase, but we've got a kevlar cuff that I've just literally screwed on to the SoftRider clog. Wonderful thing about this is when I show you this, you'll see how little time I need the horse's foot in the air, and then I'm not really compromising the overall health of the other foot while I'm getting it on. When it comes to just vet wrapping them on, Dr. Pollitt touched on the fact that, if we've got prolapsing, this horse actually did have a laminitic event. We can kind of see that the coronary band, this may have actually been a sinker. We've got to be careful, and with hoof care providers, we kind of know roughly where the apex of that coffin bone is, so we can get fairly strategic. We could certainly take this to the grinder and kind of shallow this out a little bit and create a void, or we can also just be strategic with our impression material and kind of create that float. We know that when horses kind of rotate, we always think about it in a very just like single plane. We assume it's just dorsal, but we're finding a lot of horses really kind of rotate slightly medially as well. So I think Dr. Pollitt was talking about the fact that they always kind of sink. It's just how much, but we do see it. For those ones that are kind of sinking, this horse does have a little bit of inward rotation. You could certainly kind of load it up and kind of float that medial quarter just a little bit. Create that nice soft pad there under the front. And kind of get this on reasonably tightly, and so in the case of acute laminitis, that quickly we can get some digital support on, center load the foot, we can organize our impression material. So like for farriers, hoof care providers, this is something we can just have in the back of our truck that we can get on these horses like super quick. We know that we've got all the characteristics of the center load. We're taking all that shear force and tension off the lamella bed, and hopefully we can set up a better situation for that horse's lamella to recover. When we cast the SoftRider clog on, we can kind of do it two different ways. Personally, I like to cast first and then glue the clog onto the top of it, and that way we're creating some kind of structural rigidity around the hoof capsule, and then we've got all the mechanics of the SoftRider clog on top of it. There's not a lot to do here, apart from kind of just knock the heels back a little bit, but really what I want to do is just create this capsule that's so rigid and tight that lamella bed's actually got a chance. So, if we've got a foot that's performing well and a foot that's performing efficiently, quite often those horses recover a lot better, and that's even in and out of laminitis. So to get the casting material on, just give it a sand. In a real life situation, I'm just gonna come in here Just trying to keep everything nice and clean. It's easier to keep it clean than try to get out the acetone and get the glue off the limb. We'll make sure that we get rid of any bacteria. With hoof care, it's important that we realize that everything we do, all we're really trying to achieve is keep everything within a physiological range. Not enough, too much expansion's bad, not enough expansion's bad. So it's important that we kind of moderate that, and that's what creates a lot of fluidity. The glue is simply to anchor the cast on. I don't make sure it's coming off halfway through. This is where you're under the time crunch a little bit. Like I say, I want to keep that glue nice and low on the foot. So again, in the context of laminitis, I'm going to create a little bumper at the back of the heel. Move that impression material forward. That's going to allow me a little bit of expansion throughout the cast. I'm going to cast directly down on top of this. So inside of the cast, I'm not going to do this tightly. I'm just going to lay it on the top. Start to make a couple of passes. Use that glue, anchor that cast with it. So you can kind of see that I'm trying to keep that apex of the coffin bone kind of open. One of the big things I think with casting, I think sometimes we overcast. It's like we've got a roll of cast and we feel compelled to use the whole thing. We don't have to. Again, that physiological range, if we just use half a cast, we're still getting that nice tight response that we'd expect. And then I'm just going to wrap it. And at that point, in a real life situation, I'm going to plant this horse's foot on the ground while my impression material is green, not cured, and also the cast is in a curing process, because I'm going to let that horse fall into that, and I'm actually going to weight that limb. Unfortunately today, in the setup, we can't get that done, but I'd be very precise about loading this up and making sure that the horse's capsule had expanded and accepted the cast. Prepping these SoftRider clogs is particularly easy. I'd take this to the grinder and I'd just scuff the whole thing. Tips and tricks around getting this done would be, quite often I'll use the SoftRide boot if my environmental conditions aren't good. If you're in a dirt floor barn and you want to glue something on, I'd slip that horse's foot into one of those boots to keep it clean once I'd prep the foot. So they're really just handy to have on the back of the truck for that. I use them a lot, and I'll also use them a lot even in traditional shoeing senses if I've got a high dollar horse that I don't even want to risk getting any stone bruising or anything that throughout the shoeing process. So, for me, they're in and out of the back of the truck for a multitude of reasons. Once this horse put its foot down, we'd have a nice level base on it as well. I'd be mindful about what this went down onto. I want to kind of oversize my clog just a little bit when I'm casting. I do like symmetry in my base because I think when the horse is loading up, if we've got good symmetry, I think as the force travels down the horse's leg, we've got everything nice and even. If we create too small an area, we can create instability. The flip side to that is in a really chronic case, sometimes we will dome them. Literally, we'll put a dome on the bottom of the horse's foot because, the lamella is very, very good at holding tensile strength, but very poor at dealing with shear force. This is why these clogs work so well. We can see those mechanics. Not just that, it's the material that these are made out of. Just the simple fact of very little concussion. We're reducing that strain and that stress on that lamella as we go. So you can see by wrapping it, I get this really nice tight uniform cast on top of it. It's really kind of, like I say, it would be loaded in a real life context, so we'd have the expansion there. I've got my impression material sitting in behind the apex of the coffin bone. For me, I'd be pretty happy with going ahead and getting that SoftRider clog on top. This would be, getting the clog on this way, this would be more in a chronic sense of laminitis, where, the horse is somewhat comfortable, because what we're using here is almost like an indirect, direct kind of situation. The downside of a direct glue application is that horse's foot can't go down until that glue spikes in temperature. And try to get everything on kind of last minute for the horse. And the reason for that is when I'm loading the contralateral limb, I think Pollitt did a great image the other day, or yesterday, when the fetlock descends, we get the blood cut off. So typically, these horses are going to start to misbehave. When you're gluing anything that we need to be mindful of, it'd be very easy for a farrier to kind of bust up, but it's actually the horse kind of signaling. The horses that I glue a lot that are really good at it, they'll start hopping for me, and I encourage it. Because what they're doing is it's just reperfusing and reperfusing and reperfusing. I'm going to sit that on there, make sure the toe's where I want it. Come around and just start kind of working that glue. Use a little bit of gauze and just kind of drop that glue line. It's not how much glue, it's just where it is. Kind of try to tidy everything up a little bit. So from here, like I say, I'm just waiting on that the temperature of the glue to spike. There we go. So I've got the impression material creating that bumper at the back of the heel. It's going to allow some expansion. I've got the foot caster, but with only half a roll of casting tape, and the Easy Rider clog on the bottom, making sure that I'm still shot around the center of rotation and I've got good heel support on, trying to drag that center of pressure back towards the heel structure and a compromised laminitic foot. So this is just almost an extension of what we've already done. Again, SoftRider clog with a kevlar cuff sitting on top of it. I'm going to come in and just kind of trim the heels away a little bit. We don't want to kind of limit expansion. I also don't want the kevlar cuff up on the hairline. It's actually one of the quickest applications. It's just sheetrock screws holding the cuff down, and this lasts really, really well. So again, I'm just going to protect that hairline. Going to roll that vet wrap up halfway. You can see that this process is just generally a lot quicker and easier. The great thing about this style is you can trace the horse's feet and have these already prepped up before you even get to the horse. So, a lot of the time I do hear people kind of talking about getting this kind of footwear on, but a lot of it's just preparation. It's just a different preparation than probably what you're used to. And I'm going to come in, I'm just going to split those cuffs, work the glue in. Trying to kind of keep one hand just a little bit clean. It'll pay dividends later. And then just start working that glue. So I'm going to keep the glue in this cuff and keep working it just until that glue gets just a little bit tacky. The great thing about this SoftRider cuff is I can make this shoe in 5 minutes. It's by far for the therapeutic value of this shoe and getting it on like this, it's really quick. I know that there's other clogs out there on the market, but by the time you kind of work away at them, they can take a bit of time. So this glue is just starting to set up just a little bit. So again, I'm going to get impression material in there. So while I'm anticipating that glue setting up, I know that the clock's ticking on that, so I'll get moving here as well. And hopefully everything comes together at once. I'm going to use a wrapping technique. It's going to look really fast. I'm going to do it fast, and then I'm going to slow it down for you guys so you can kind of see how I get it. Essentially, I'm going to move the shoe in 4 directions, so as it goes on, I'll be altering the shoe placement as I'm wrapping. So this is looking pretty good. In the sense of a laminitic, you know, again, I'm going to protect the apex of the coffin bone at all costs. Okay, this glue is really good. I'm going to put my knee in behind it. I want to see that impression material just bubble out a little bit. Then I'm going to come in, make sure that the clog is in line with the horse's limb. I don't want to alter where this breakover is. Make sure I'm at the toe. Push it in. Remove whatever impression material I don't want. Check my placement, everything's pretty much, maybe just a little bit medial. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up and grab that medial branch and up over the collateral cartilage on the lateral side, and that's going to push my shoe back towards me. Right? The opposite would be if I needed it more medially. I'm going to come up over the lateral side and push it medially. If I need the shoe to go forwards, I'm going to come across the top, and that will push the shoe forwards. If I need the shoe back towards the heels, I'm going to grab the toe, and up I go. So as I'm wrapping, there's only 4 wraps, and then it's just a combination of where the shoe is. In a field situation, this horse's foot would be loaded on the ground right now. So, you know, earlier on I was talking about the contralateral limb and the damage we're doing to it. I think, you know, I may have had that foot up in the air 30 seconds. You know, if we're nailing, we're minutes, and I think in those critical cases, you know, minutes matter. So I normally just carry a little scalpel, or you could use a, you know, like a Stanley knife or something like that to get these. I'm waiting for this glue to really set up nice and hard. I want a clicking sound. The other thing I'm looking for is just the temperature of the glue sitting in behind there. I think we're getting close. We'll give it another minute. But during this time, if this was a real life situation, this horse could be standing on all 4 feet right now, on top of the SoftRider. Within minutes, we've got that foot center loaded. We've reduced the impact when it does move. We've reduced the amount of leverage.
I do a fair amount of
just like that. Nice quick application. We've got a little bit of heel expansion. We've got our impression material sitting in the back. We haven't loaded the apex of the coffin bone. We've got the SoftRider clog sitting on there, offering medial, lateral, and dorsal relief. But again, plenty of heel support. And I think that kind of brings us to the end of the demonstration, but I hope you enjoyed it.